Hey all, I haven't done one of these in an awfully long time, but I decided that maybe it was time for another short discussion, not only about playing in general, but the aesthetics of how you're playing your instrument. I'm going to focus tonight on something that I did this past spring at B&B during our drum jam and clinic, but didn't go into this part of it. I featured cymbals at our drum jam, but that discussion was more about what they were, how they were made, what they're used for. My discussion tonight is when, where, and how I think you should be using them. And I have to tell you, one of the reasons why I do this is because after you listen to yourself lay down some tracks, and you only get this by listening to yourself back, you'll really find where you should be placing the correct instrument in the correct place. And I have to tell you, for years and years and years and years, I didn't. I was a big fan of always doing the fill and always ending it with a big cymbal smash or something like that. And sometimes that's not really called for. So we're going to discuss how and when to use the cymbals that you have, in addition to which cymbals that I'm referring to as well. I feel kind of like I'm in Wayne's World. This is a Friday night and I'm not gigging, so please bear with me. And I haven't done one of these in a while, so if I stumble a little bit, please excuse me for the moment. The cymbals that I have around with me, just to let you know what I have, got my hi-hat and got my crashes, got my ride cymbal, and got some special effects cymbals as well. Splash. I want to call it an accent splash. And my special effects china up here. Oh yeah, that one's a loud one. That's the one that I like. That one gets your attention, I'll tell you what. Each one of these particular instruments, which make up the high part of your instrument, the upper echelon notes, the accents of the instrument, are all very different and are to be used in different places. Too many of my students come to me, they're sitting there, hey, Mr. Carmine, how about let me show you this beat? And they use that machine gun thing that keeps going, and they're using it, whether they know it or not, as kind of a crutch to keep them in time with eighth notes. And they're not really thinking about what it's actually doing and how much flavor a hi-hat has. You have the natural chick part. You have the open sound. You have the half open sound. You have the foot click or chick together as it is. All of those sounds really can play a really important part in the groove. Let me play something for you, and I'll show you how I mean. I'm just going to work with the hi-hat for a minute. Those little nuances in there to enhance what I call enhancing the groove. It isn't just that everybody gets into that, steady kind of thing that's going along. These are 16th notes, 8th notes. And they don't think about what they're playing and how it's actually mingling in with the rest of the instruments. For me, I'm a big fan lately of not being continuous, because continuous leads to that machine-like thing. You heard me break it up. That little bit of nuance really does help the flavor of the tune. And I was actually doing this as well while I was going along. So it's kind of like I used it as a quiet kind of filler, but not something that would fill in obtrusively to the rest of the tune. There's lots of different ways to use that with the hi-hat. You also heard me do something that I was getting ready to do. I was getting ready to go over to the ride cymbal. Now, a ride cymbal is meant to be a rhythmic type cymbal, but to have a little ring with it and to add a little bit different color. Twice you heard me do something that didn't happen the way I used to do it. Twice you heard me do some really minor fills, but not go to any of the crash cymbals or the emphasis cymbals, the effect cymbals. Why? The groove doesn't really want to stop at those particular points. Every time you lay into a crash, and that's what they're meant for. They're meant for accents. Usually for me, I'm hitting them with a bass drum. They're putting big accents and big pauses into the groove as well, even if you come back with something afterwards. They're putting little stopping points in the actual rotation of the groove. And sometimes those little stopping points aren't necessary. So why use them? When you're playing crash cymbals, this is where they should be hitting. They should be hitting accents. Notice those big punches. Those are the things that need the big crash cymbals. And I'm not talking about just for that type of music, but I'm talking about when you need emphasis and when you want to drive home a rhythm. If you want to drive home a bunch of patterns, you heard me do that. That kind of thing. That puts a finality and an emphasis in that section. And that's what you're looking to do with all the crashes. You're not sitting down there in a nice slow ballad and bashing your brains out one or another with all those things. So that's what I'm talking about, knowing when and where to use them. Accents can be enhanced with drums. It depends on the depth and how hard you want the accent to be. You also heard me use a crash where I went ba, 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 ba. That last one puts a finality on that figure. And that's why I use that big china to put that finality right on there. So you see, it isn't just a matter of doing a fill. It's a matter of where it is and how it's used in the tune. That's what you need to think about. And you need to really examine your playing, record yourself, and find out, do you really want to use things at all? How many times have I talked to you about where I'm playing and I don't even use a cymbal in there at all? I hope I've made my point. See you next time.